Hey everybody, let's dig into Module 6 and Assistive Technology in the IEP. We're going to look at the quality indicators for that. As you can see here, once again, as I have done in previous modules, I've listed out each of the breakdown of the quality indicators for this area, which is connecting assistive technology to the IEP itself. And IDEA requires that the IEP team considers AT needs when they do any annual evaluation. And sometimes districts, teachers, schools don't really focus on this because they're thinking AT is all high tech. And so they think, oh, well, my student doesn't need high tech. But in reality, most of our students could benefit from some of the um, even just accessibility tools that we think of as just built into things. But honestly, if our students can benefit from the use of those, we really need to be incorporating that into the IEP itself. So let's look at the quality indicators. Number one, the education agency has guidelines for documenting AT needs in the IEP and requires their consistent application. So that means that your district or school particularly has some kind of regular format for how you document AT needs. The important intent of this is that the education agency provides guidance to IEP teams because you may not have, this may not be your specialty area. We get that. That documentation should provide that guidance to help you document the AT needs of your students effectively, whether that's devices or services, or all of the above, as part of their specially designed instruction, maybe related services, or perhaps supplementary aids and services. One of the things we're going to look at for that is the GPAT resource for you to evaluate the needs of your student. That could, if your district doesn't have specific guidelines, or maybe they're already using these, or there's different frameworks. There's the SET framework, SETT framework, that a lot of places, it's very simple. It's really just a structured way to start asking questions about what are the needs of the student. All right, number two, all services that the IEP team determines are needed to support the selection, acquisition, and use of AT devices are designated in the IEP. So you need to make sure you're not just saying they need access to this IEP or to this AT. You need to talk about what services will be provided in order to support that. This is critical to make sure that the use of the device is effective. It's important that the IEP describes the AT services that are going to be needed for student success. This may include an evaluation, customization or maintenance of the devices, coordination of services, and then training. Training for the student, the family, any professionals that are involved with the student and the AT, and anyone else, could be peers that might be helping, etc. So you want to consider that whole thing. And that's what a lot of what part two of your case study is doing. You're going to do the needs assessment that's kind of in that part one, that number one there. And then number two, you're going to lay out like the plan of who all would need to be involved in the training and support of the use of this device. Number three, the IEP illustrates that AT is a tool to support achievement of goals and progress in the general curriculum by establishing a clear relationship between student needs, AT devices and services, and the student's goals and objectives. So again, they all need to connect, right? The intent is that most goals are developed before decisions about AT are actually made. However, this does not preclude the development of additional goals, especially those related specifically to the appropriate use of assistive technology. So as you go through this class and you're developing your case study and you develop a goal for your student in regards to their use of that AT, think about how you might incorporate that goal into their next IEP. That in a way that's really relevant for them, and will encourage everyone in the team to help support the use of that AT development. If you find a tool that's really going to aid your students' independence overall, especially thinking ahead toward the future, then that's definitely something you should put in as a goal, because you want everybody to really work on getting that student in a place where he or she can use it independently. All right, number 4, IEP content regarding assistive technology use is written in language that describes how assistive technology contributes to the achievement of measurable and observable outcomes. So we don't want to just provide AT, right? We want to align AT with certain measurable outcomes. And things that we can see. So the content that describes those measurable and observable outcomes for AT use helps the IEP team review student progress. That's why making that goal would be important, and determines whether the AT has had the expected impact on student participation and achievement. So ideally, you would have a goal related to the AT in the IEP so that you can, as a team, keep an eye on the progress of the student with that device and see when and where you might need to make changes, either to the device or perhaps in the support of the use of the device. Because just because it didn't work that one time does not mean that the AT device is not effective. It could very well just mean that the student hasn't had the appropriate instruction or support in the use of the device. Number 5, assistive technology is included in the IEP in a manner that provides a clear and complete description of the devices and services to be provided and used to address student needs and achieve expected results. So the IEP should be written so that participants in the meeting and others who use information from the IEP to implement student programming understand what technology is to be available, how it is to be used, and under what circumstances. Jargon should be avoided. Anytime you're writing an IEP, I know you write it in a very kind of neutral academic way, but we should avoid any terms that we know family isn't going to understand. Try to avoid a lot of acronyms that would be unfamiliar to some folks. We want to make an IEP understandable to anybody on the team, and that includes people outside of education. So that's really, really important. Same thing here with the technology. Now, you're not supposed to write specific devices necessarily. It's more the broader, you know, AT accommodation. So let's say speech to text as opposed to a specific extension or tool, okay? Or some type of, visual display device or communication board. Use those broader terms, but they should be specific enough so we understand when, where, and how they're supposed to be implemented and used within the educational environment. What are some common errors teams make in this area? One, IEP teams do not know how to include AT in their IEPs. So I've put in a lot of information for you in this module to help you with that. Even if you already think you know how to do that, please make sure you go through all of those because you may have a different or a narrow perspective. Okay. Number 2, IEPs, including AT, use a formula approach to documentation. So all IEPs are developed in a similar fashion and the unique needs of the child are not addressed. This happens all the time in all areas of an IEP. I've seen it a zillion times. In the interest of time management, or people just don't understand the broader concept of what makes an individualized IEP. And so they follow the same approach somebody else told them they were supposed to do. Okay, so it's important here. Not all kids with learning disabilities should not have access to AT. Just because they're higher functioning does not mean they do not get access to AT or that they do not need access to AT. So sometimes that's one I've heard from a lot of folks. Or if they're in the gen ed environment, that they shouldn't need access to AT. That's not true. And I hope that you've learned that by now with just the discussion of accessibility tools that we've talked about throughout the modules. So there is certainly supposed to be kind of a consistent way of developing the plan for AT, but that consistent way should be asking questions about the individual needs of the student. And so how you address that in an IEP is going to vary. Number 3, AT is included in the IEP, but the relationship to goals and objectives is unclear. So again, if you know an AT device or service will help a student, it's really the best practice to have a goal that aligns with that. And that don't look at that as adding more to your plate. It really is just to help manage and make sure everybody's collecting data on the student progress and use of that device. And the use of that device may actually significantly help your student in the other IEP goals that they have. Um, Number 4, AT devices are included in the IEP, but no AT services support the use. So again, it's like throwing a goal in there that you don't have some specially designed instruction planned to teach the student something. You can't just say they're going to use this and not have a plan for someone supporting them in their learning the tool and then actually using it consistently. Um, until the student really sees the benefit of using the tool, they may just look on it as more work. And so you can't just say, here you go. You really have to have a systematic plan in place to not only teach them, but to encourage and motivate them to continue to use that tool until we see its benefit, or we determine it's absolutely not beneficial and we try something new. But number 5, AT expected results are not measurable or observable. So um, you can't just go, yeah, he seems to be better. He seems to like it. We need something more than that, and more framed in a specific way. We want to be able to show people data, especially if you start asking for money or devices that and tools that cost things. You need to be able to demonstrate that they clearly have a positive effect on the student's progress. So be sure that you do that from the beginning. All right. So that's the breakdown of our quality indicators for assistive technology in the IEP. Thanks for listening. Hope this was helpful, and I wish you well.